Hello everybody and welcome to the 2024 version of a layout tour of the BNSF Dighton Subdivision. I thought I'd do a layout tour that is from the vantage point of the trains themselves. So you can almost pretend like you're looking out the window of a passenger car and taking a tour of the Dighton Sub. Now, I said in a previous video that the Dighton Sub doesn't actually exist, but on the layout, it connects Garden City, Kansas with Newton, Kansas, and the towns in between are Dighton, Great Bend, and McPherson. So as we're running around the layout, those are the towns that you're going to see. So today we're going to originate in Garden City, and where we are right now is we're leaving the engine facility of the Garden City yard. Now the yard is actually shared between both Garden City and Newton. In real life, they're nowhere near each other, but on the layout, they're right next to each other. And this allows me to run either point to point or in a continuous loop. As you'll see when we get there, I can just bypass the lead into the yard and continue to go around in a circle. So the yard itself is about 25 feet long. It's long enough to house an entire train. There are 5 tracks on either side. There's 5 tracks for Garden City, 5 tracks for Newton, and then the engine facility at the west end is shared between both yards. So as we get a little bit closer to exiting the yard, you'll see the front of this grain train. So there are the locomotives, and we are getting ready to now turn left on a curve, and then that will get us into the main line itself at Garden City. So we'll speed up a little bit as we now enter the main line, and we have now entered the main line. This will be, not yet, but it will be the city of Garden City. We're going to pass by a grain elevator that will have room for several grain cars, followed by another industrial facility, which will receive probably tank cars for chemicals. That'll be right about here. Now, the next part that we see is actually scenic. So we begin the scenic part of the railroad. That's the Garden City lumber yard that is already complete. We have a little bit of distance before we reach an overpass or an underpass, depending on your vantage point. And this acts as a separator between Garden City and then on the trip to Dighton, which is the next town. Just outside of Garden City, we have the Garden City Ethanol Company. So that's the facility that you're seeing here. They actually have their own locomotive. They receive, obviously, corn, and then they export ethanol through tank cars. So a lot of action at that facility. We're now passing over the duck under. So this allows you to get into the layout. We are again kind of through a rural area on our way to Dighton. I think it's important, I've heard other people say the same thing, to have some distance between your scenes. And so this is a peninsula, you can see it from either side, that puts some distance between Garden City and Dighton. It gives your trains a place to go. So it's just a very rural area. There's a couple of oil wells, but an awful lot of landscape that is nothing more than just grass and bushes and a couple of hills. So we're making a big turn here and getting ready to enter the city limits of Dighton. So we'll hit the water tower first. So there's the water tower on the outskirts of town, then an office building, and the grain elevator, which is the main industry at Dighton. Dighton has a very large grain elevator. Lots of silos in the grain elevator. Gets a lot of grain cars in and out. And then as we continue on down the line, we'll reach a fertilizer manufacturer or agrochemical manufacturer. You can see the tanks there and a couple of tank cars that service that area. This is Jim's garage. So Jim collects old cars and restores them, and he does that in that garage there. This is another one of those rural areas between towns. Again, giving your train some place to go. This is a big turn that will actually reach the other side of the backdrop of Dighton. We're going to go through another overpass or underpass, and we are now reaching the city of Great Bend. So Great Bend's not finished yet, but it will be soon. Great Bend has another large grain facility. Great Bend's got multiple elevators on both sides of the tracks. You're seeing one there, and now we're reaching the other on the other side of the track. A lot of grain cars will service Great Bend. And then on the other side of Great Bend, you'll find a refinery. And right now there's a Norfolk Southern locomotive and some assorted cars that are taking up the siding there. But that siding is actually double track, and you'll be able to store 16 tank cars there for service of the refinery. Now, directly after the refinery, we are heading towards McPherson. We are about to enter the city limits of McPherson. So we have a small elevator on the outskirts of town. And then as we continue on, we're going to enter what will eventually be a large facility for auto dealerships. So you can see the auto racks here. Vehicles will be delivered to that staging area and then transported to the dealerships in western Kansas. Also have some manufacturing facilities. And then this area will eventually, and again, not anywhere close to being done yet, but will merge into Newton, which is the final stop on the railroad. Newton is where the Dighton Sub and the Emporia Sub connect. So we'll have some industry here, and then there will be a turnoff. We're about to see the signal for it. And that turnoff diverges left into the Newton Yard, or the track that you're seeing here is a continuation for continuous running. So if I wanted to run a train in a continuous loop, this would allow me to do it. You're about to see there's Garden City again in the background, so the whole thing is connected with that little piece of track there. But we've entered the Newton Yard, which is almost identical to the Garden City Yard. Same number of tracks, same length. Again, you can store entire unit trains, or if you want to build a train from this yard, you can. All of the tracks, you have the ability to run around. So as the train enters the yard from one direction, it'll reach the end and then have a ladder track so that the locomotives can either move into the engine servicing facility or can run all the way around back to the front of the train and then depart again, going in the opposite direction. So you can see we've got some intermodal cars here. We're getting very close to the engine facility, and you'll see when we get to the locomotive servicing facility, some foreign power. So there's some Norfolk Southern and some BC Rail on the layout, and that's because my next door neighbor is also a HO scale enthusiast, so some of his locomotives are on the layout, some of his rolling stock's on the layout. He comes over and runs trains himself. He's actually an engineer, or I'm sorry, a conductor for the Burlington Northern Santa Fe, so he's my source of prototypical information. So we're now back to the engine servicing facility, and that's it. So that's the layout, starting in Garden City, terminating in Newton, now connected to the Emporia Sub. And it's been a lot of fun. I wanted to post this update as a starting point. I plan on doing runarounds probably once a year as I get more and more of the layout complete. You guys can see the progress and we can talk about the things that I've done. So hope you enjoyed the tour, and I will see you next time.